Alrighty, what is up everyone? So today's video was requested by one of my commentators of what if I wrote an episode of What's New Scooby-Doo. Now I will say that What's New Scooby-Doo and the OG series are the first two Scooby-Doo shows that pretty much I remember distinctively watching. Well, it was the TV shows themselves, it wasn't the movies. The movie was the Boo Brothers, which I think I've already talked about that. But for in this instance, I will say that I super love What's New Scooby-Doo, and yeah, I really thought it was a good idea. So for starters, I just want to give some outside information on my thought process for this. So first up, I went through the What's New Scooby-Doo episode list and looked at all the monsters and decided to adapt the idea into an episode sort of cleanly, I guess. For example, I wanted to keep the music that was in the original episode into the script because I did think about it and it really couldn't just be an add-on to the list of the episodes. Instead, I chose to replace one of them. So the episode that I chose is What's New Scooby-Doo Big Scare and the Big Easy. I chose this episode over the others because I love Louisiana. It is my home away from home. I love everything about it. The heat, the food, the culture, the swamps. It's just my thing. I love it all. So I wanted to make an episode sort of dedicated to that love of mine, and I chose to call this episode Bayou Beware. And also, just another side note, for some odd reason, the Ghost tab in Scoobypedia, they didn't put the Leland brothers in the L category of the Ghost section. I don't know why, but it's cool. It just took a little bit longer to find. So let's begin with what if I wrote a What's New Scooby-Doo episode. We start with a crisp summer morning, the sun barely over the horizon of the water. Fishermen are casting, everyone's greeting and meeting buddies they haven't seen in a little bit. Children are getting excited because they got something biting on one of the fishing lines. When a couple of people notice off in the distance a fog bank drifting in from the west. One of the groups of people would notice an eerie green light coming from the fog, a rustling of the wind blowing the trees and the fog creeping closer and closer to the people. Then they would hear the churning of water. The fog has finally enveloped the surrounding area. A couple of the older guys look at the center of the water and that's when they see it clearly. The widow's lantern, a cursed and haunted steamboat, is pedaling straight to them. The people try to flee, but due to the fog, it would be too dangerous to randomly paddle away, so they try to hug the side of the brushes, keeping clear of the boat. From what they can see, however, it is even more eerily than they first thought. An older man looks up and yells, "Look, there is no driver, yet the wheel is moving left from right, steering the boat." Not only that, but a woman in a purple regal dress is sitting at a table. The lantern is sitting on the tables, and the flames flickering from the lantern as if it was an entertainer for the woman. Then as the boat starts to pass, the people hear it, an ethereal howling, and when they look up to the not destroyed smokestack, they see it, an outline at first, but then it jumps down closer, showing itself to be a giant wolfman, or in other terms, a Rougarou. That is when we cut to the mystery machine and the gang like we normally do in the episodes, and we see that the gang have come to Louisiana because Mardi Gras is around the corner, and Daphne was invited by a family friend to come and visit. When the gang finally arrive to their destination, they meet the family friend, that being the Voodoo Maestro from the Scooby-Doo 2002 live-action movie. Another side note here, I really thought his name was Ingu, but I guess we never learn his name. If you do know it, let me know so that way we can put it on Scoobypedia because it literally does not say what his name is. Velma Daphne gives the Maestro a hug and introduces the gang to him. Everyone says hello, then Velma asks how Daphne knows the Maestro. Daphne says a while back her mom went very spiritual and so she called for the Maestro to visit. Velma thinks, alright, cool, nothing wrong with that. The Maestro reveals that he actually called for another purpose, and that's when the man who was fishing earlier walks up to the Maestro and tells him that it happened again, another attack by the Voodoo Queen and her pet Rougarou. Maestro reveals to the man that he invited some help, the mystery gang. The man looks a bit calmer and says, well, if they're friends of yours, then they must be good at hunting monsters. Fred claims, yes sir, but Shaggy and Scooby do the whole scared routine when it comes to monsters. Then Shaggy with Scooby in his arms asks the Maestro what is the rouge, the rug, and Scooby interrupts saying Rougarou. Maestro reveals that the Rougarou is similar to a werewolf-like creature that roams the swamps, punishing those who break the rules of the Bayou, in which that scares Shaggy and Scooby, of course. The gang decide to go where the old man last saw the widow's lantern and the Rougarou. Velma looks over at a branch and sees a bit of fur dangling, blowing in the wind, making it almost look like a torn flag. Velma says jinkies, then shows it to the maestro. Maestro reckons that they might want to go meet a wildlife expert of the area to know what this fur is made of, or what made the fur. The old man showing them swears up and down it must be the Rougarou, but the gang aren't too sure. Later on, the gang and the maestro go to meet Madame Delacroix. Actually, professionally, her name is Dr. Celeste Delacroix, and she owns a wildlife sanctuary and rehabilitation center. Madame Delacroix meets up with the gang while she's out taking care of some of her animals. Shaggy and Scooby, of course, decide to mess with the feed of the animals, which they don't take too kindly to, but the rest of the gang, they show her the fur they had found, but she did not know what animal it came from, and she asked if they could leave it there so that way she could study it and see what they do. Later on, they decide to go to a restaurant on the bay, but that's when it starts ramping up. Gang look over and see a giant cloud of fog. They hear Steamboat's whistle coming from the cloud, and everyone jumps up. They run down to a little boat that's tied up on the water and start heading towards the fog. Meanwhile, Shaggy and Scooby are just coming back from the kitchen. Shaggy saying, "Sheesh, man. Well, I was wondering if they had some more Five Skull fire sauce." They walk over to the table to find it empty, and when they look over to the bay, they see their friends in a boat heading towards some fog. Then they hear a eerie howling coming from behind them. Shaggy and Scooby freeze, then look down as some fog comes pouring around them. Shaggy quietly asks Scooby, "You think the chef is burning any food?" Scooby says, "I don't smell anything burning." They both turn around, and that's when they see the appearance, fully visible, of the Rougarou, holding a lantern, and he is standing in front of the doors. Shaggy and Scooby then scream and run, trying to escape the Rougarou. They do their stereotypical monster chase the boys around, and I will say the same song that played during the Leland Brothers episode will be the song during this chase scene, that being Man with a Hex by the Atomic Fireballs. Still love it. Eventually, they do escape, and that's when we cut over to Fred, Daphne, Velma, and Maestro, gathering at the Steamboat. They climb aboard and start snooping around. Shaggy and Scooby would start to head back and find their friends, only to get into a fog bank. Not thinking anything of it, they decide to run right into some of the native animals of the swamps, some gators. The gators scare the two into jumping into a fan boat with a bunch of work tools, and it's randomly attached to the swamp. Like, it's in the middle of nowhere, which is very weird because a lot of the tools are new. Shaggy and Scooby, still in the fog bank, decide to drive the fan boat towards where they last saw their friends. They manage to find the haunted steamboat, by accident I might add, and come aboard even though neither wants to. They walk backwards, going through the widow's lantern, then they bump into Velma and Maestro. Scooby and Shaggy show Maestro and Velma the fan boat and all the tools inside of it. Velma looks at it suspiciously, meanwhile Maestro says they might want to go grab Daphne and Fred so they can get out of here. They manage to find the others, then the ghost of the Voodoo Queen and the Rougarou find them. A big chase scene happens, and the gang manage to get on the little boat and are quickly escaping from the Ghost Queen. Then she sends the Rougarou using the fan boat to chase after them. They manage to lose the Rougarou because the fan boat ran out of gas. The gang managed to get back to where they are staying at and talking some more to Maestro. They finally decide that they need to set a trap, so they decide to go back to the widow's lantern and hopefully trap the monsters. So they manage to find the boat again, and they sneak aboard and start setting up the traps when the Rougarou returns and starts chasing Scooby and Shaggy around the boat. The Rougarou attacks some of the machinery that the boys are hiding around, and the Rougarou's face makes a surprise like, "Oh boy, I wasn't supposed to do that." The machine blows up, sending the Rougarou flying back into the ghost of the Voodoo Queen, and both of them get caught in some high-tensile fishing nets. The boat during this whole time is floating around frenzied, and Fred and Maestro and Scooby are trying to keep the wheel steady. Unfortunately, it does not go as planned, as the boat crashes a bit on the dock. The Queen and the Rougarou are revealed to be Dr. Delacroix and one of her assistants, who helped her make the massive steamboat. Maestro and Velma both asked why were they attacking people after letting them down. Dr. Delacroix revealed that the steamboat is also a parade float. She then pulls out a device that looks like a game controller, and they drive the boat backwards from the crashed dock and onto a neighboring boat ramp, which reveals to the gang that yes indeed, this was a parade float / steamboat, and in fact it was for this year's competition for this year's Mardi Gras, to which at the end of the episode would be the assistant driving the steamboat / parade float, and the gang and Dr. Delacroix is tossing candy and bees into the people celebrating from down below. And that's the end of the episode. Hope you all enjoyed this video, and subscribe, comment down below, like the video. I will say I am having a lot of fun writing these, so if y'all want more, I'll definitely make more. Also, next month will be the starting of King of the Spooks Season 2, and that topic will be What's New Scooby-Doo. So if you have 8 monsters from that series you would love to see in a battle style video, comment them so I can keep a tally. I don't have any personal favorites right now on ones that I would really like to see to weigh the scale on any spot, so all of them are open. And I hope you guys enjoy this. I will catch you all later. Bye.